Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI, and relax with us online at chfi.com.
We're in the heart of the city. This is the soundtrack to accompany what's in the mailbox. Good evening, I'm Don Jackson. Suppose I say summer. Write the word hummingbird. Put it in an envelope. Take it down the hill to the box. When you open my letter, you will recall those days and how much, just how much, I love you. Hummingbird for Tess by Raymond Carver. He anticipates the reaction from the person he's sending the letter to, but it may take time in the real world for the letter to make its way from his box to another. Tonight there's something in the mailbox for lovers and other strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Steely Dan, Rikki, Don't Lose That Number, and the Shylights with Have You Seen Her? The house is about ownership, not connection. Dad knew how to build a house, not a home. Line between the brothers from the film The Lake House that we talked about last night. The love story of two people separated by time but able to communicate with each other via letters left in the mailbox outside that spectacular 6,000 square foot house that fronted the lake. Somehow the mailbox acts as a point where the two different years that they find themselves in connect or intersect. When a letter is placed inside the mailbox, the flag moves seemingly on its own, while the other person in another time retrieves it. When I open my mailbox at home, most often it's bills that I find. Sometimes it contains a letter or card from a friend in another part of the country, but for the most part, it's bills, especially at this time of the year, and an awful lot of junk mail. There's a great scene in the film where the two soon-to-be lovers, separated by time and distance, make arrangements to meet on two benches in a park. If you've seen the film, then you know what I'm referring to. A walkway passes both benches. The screen is, in essence, split in two, as the two people are sitting there at different points in time, conversing with each other in a way. People are passing by in two different times, and as the pedestrians pass, they fade in the middle only to be replaced by others. It's difficult to describe, but it's a wonderful device used by the writer and director of the film. When we post a letter in the regular mail, we must be patient as we anticipate the reaction it will generate. Today's email and instant text messaging has removed the waiting time. We get a response almost immediately. My daughter was at the movies with a few friends today. She's in the middle of exams. Actually, her exams are over, so she has a few days off in high school. I needed to drive them to the theater and then pick them up after the movie. When she called me to let me know the movie was over, I told her I had to wait for her brother to get home before I left to pick her up. A few minutes later, he arrived at the door with a new message for me from his sister. While he walked home, they were both sending text messages to one another. Our world has certainly changed. It's going to get to a point, if it hasn't already, that the mailbox that sits in front of your house will soon be filled only with bills and junk mail. And yet, we take great pains to ensure the mailbox is the best that money can buy. Some thoughts on that tonight with Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Celine Dion, in some small way. I watched a late-night movie with Gary Sinise sometime back on television. It was called Fallen Angel. He plays a man who returns home after a 20-year absence to his family home to see his sick and ailing father. only to find that in the time it took for him to get back to the East Coast from the West Coast, his father had passed away. His father used to be a caretaker of a cottage for a wealthy family, among many other jobs. As Sinise's character is reacquainting himself with his childhood memories, he goes to the cottage and inadvertently knocks down the mailbox that's at the main entranceway. Pieces of it are scattered on the ground. He picks up the mailbox, takes it back to the workshop his father used, and over the course of a day or two, he is able to repair it. In fact, it looks as good as new. One of the characters in the movie, an old-timer who knew his late father, admires his restoration. You know, it's too bad that all those who have knocked down mailboxes over the years never felt as guilty. Otherwise, they would have been repaired and replaced and not left on the side of the road. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Remy Shand and Take a Message, and Rod Stewart with These Foolish Things. And Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Romance set to words and music. Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI. And relax with us online at CHFI.com.
And welcome back to Lovers and Other Strangers, now a blog as well at CHFI.com. I'm Don Jackson. Some people take great pride in their mailboxes. They replace the standard issue one that comes with the house from a selection that is almost as varied as the people doing the choosing. There are ones with a brass finish, others that resemble a little house. What is it about a mailbox along the side of a country road, though, that inspires young people to give it a whack when they go by in their car? Drive the back roads outside the city in summer, and you're more than likely to come across a mailbox that's been knocked off its moorings and left unceremoniously in the ditch some distance away. On a lot of my bike rides in the country, I see these down on the road. Sometimes all you see is the post where one used to be. I've wondered if the owner of the house is trying to restore it on a workbench or out to buy a new one. One of our neighbors has one of these old-fashioned mailboxes, but I think he's smart. He has it close to the house rather than out by the road. It's a little difficult to knock down when it's that far away from the roadway. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Sheryl Crow with Sting always on your side, and Roberta Flack killing me softly with his song. According to the book American Averages, Amazing Facts of Everyday Life by Mike Feinsilber and William B. Meade, on an average day in America, 28 mailmen are bitten by dogs. Dangerous profession. You know, I remember a story I featured some time back about a serviceman who found a book in a library that had notes scribbled in it by a previous borrower. It was a book that he enjoyed, and he particularly found an affinity for some of the thoughts scribbled in the margin. He was so intrigued that he tried to find the writer of the notes. He eventually does, and they begin a pen friendship. Now, he's a serviceman, and of course is eventually called into action. As the writer of this piece said, during the next year and 1 month, the two grew to know each other through the mail. Each letter was a seed falling on a fertile heart. A romance was budding. Unquote. You can't do that today with email or text messaging. The time factor is removed. What could blossom slowly over time would be difficult to do in this day and age of instant messaging. But even in this connected world, there are still some things that need to take their time. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, that song is called I Love You. We usually put our house numbers on the mailbox outside. Sometimes they're on the dwelling itself as well. It reminds me of this. It's an excerpt from the 1979 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, and it's published by D.C. Thompson and Company in London, England. Gay writes, Granny Robertson realized she'd have to give up her house. She just wasn't able to go on living by herself. Then her son-in-law said she could have the big ground floor room overlooking the back garden if she would like to come and stay with them. So she said yes, thank you. But her own little house had been her home all her married life. How she'd missed the friendly door with big brass numbers and the nameplate below, which her husband had proudly fixed there in 1921. She'd kept them polished all those years, and they shone as brightly as ever. She went to stay with her sister for a week. When she came back, it was to her son-in-law's house. Her son-in-law met her at the station, drove her home, and carried her bags into the hall. And then her eyes filled with tears. For on the door of her room were the brass numbers that had been on her own door. Below them was the brass nameplate, worn thin by years of polishing. Yes, her son-in-law, understanding how much her home meant to her, had brought them and fixed them there. So in a way, you'll still find Granny Robertson at number 17. And every morning you'll find her polishing the nameplate with the memories of a lifetime crowding back. .1 CHFI. Stay tuned. Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Passion set to words and music. Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI. And relax with us online at CHFI.com.
We're in the heart of Toronto, around the world on the internet, and now a blog as well at CHFI.com. My companion writing is called Dead Letter Office. Log on right now to the CHFI website. Follow the links on the homepage at CHFI.com. Good evening once again. I'm Don Jackson. John Donne wrote More Than Kisses. Letters mingle souls. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers. Bryan Adams mentioning letters not sent in Inside Out, and Jim Cuddy, All the Mail Left Unopened in Pull Me Through. Once again, I'd like to thank Ken for passing this along to me in my email. And I quote, people tend to look at the word nothing and belittle its importance. Nothing is, well, nothing. But the fact is that it can mean life or death, success or failure, joy or sadness. Mountain climbers have died when they stepped on it. Parachutists are upset when they pull the ripcord, and nothing happens. Farmers have lost their farms when they grew it. Hockey players and coaches have lost their jobs when they scored it. It expresses joy when it represents the sum total of your debts. It is what you earn when you do it. I have saved it over the years, and now I have it in my bank account. It is what you generally learn from a politician making a speech. It is often discussed at meetings and in arguments, and fights start over it. I often find it in my mailbox, and only last night I got it from a soft drink dispenser. I could go on, but it will mean nothing. I just need some time to think about it. You don't need to thank me, though. It's nothing. Unquote. Its author, appropriately, is unknown. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers and Rupert Holmes. Speaking of nothing in the mailbox, I ran across this in the November 15th, 07 issue of the Globe and Mail's Social Studies column, and I quote, "You stop at the mailbox and bump into the guy down the hall. Or you pull into the driveway just as your neighbor is getting home. Suddenly you're gabbing about nothing in particular, and you end up frittering away 10 minutes. It's not a waste of time, according to research to be published in the February 08 issue of the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. 10 minutes of talking face-to-face or by phone improves memory and boosts intellectual performance as much as doing crosswords." There's a widespread belief in this culture that the way to maintain your sharpness is to do technical and intellectual activities, says Oscar Ibarra, the University of Michigan psychologist. But his study suggests an alternative to Sudoku or crosswords could be simply talking to one another. Unquote. Information quotes from the Los Angeles Times and featured in the November 15th, 07 issue of the Globe and Mail's Social Studies column. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Terence, Trent, Darby, Sign Your Name, and Van Morrison. Have I told you lately? My companion writing is called Dead Letter Office. Log on to the CHFI website, follow the links on the homepage at chfi.com. And Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI. And relax with us online at chfi.com.
And welcome back to Lovers and Other Strangers, now a blog as well at chfi.com. I'm Don Jackson. With email, the mailbox has come to take on a somewhat different meaning, but with a similar purpose in mind. And just as the mailbox attached to our homes can be filled with junk mail, so too are our electronic mailboxes. The only thing you don't have to worry about is a virus getting into the outdoor one. Consider this, and I quote, "The number of active electronic mailboxes in the world has more than tripled over the past 5 years to 1.1 billion, according to a California research team of a research firm. Messages surpass 20 billion a day." Unquote from the Chicago Tribune. In the August 23rd, 2005 issue of the Globe and Mail's Social Studies column. But it's not the electronic mail that has piqued my interest tonight. It's what has been referred to as snail mail. In the film Amelie, there's a very funny segment that may have been inspired by a website on the internet. In the film, her father refuses to leave his home for a reason that I can't remember at this moment. But anyway, in his garden, there is a garden gnome. Amelie makes arrangements with a flight attendant to have this gnome accompany her on flights around the world. Pictures keep arriving in his mail of this gnome in front of some of the world's most famous landmarks. As I mentioned, it reminded me that I once heard there was a website on the internet that featured photos of garden gnome taken all around the world, accompanying one traveler on his trips, and photographed at places like the Taj Mahal. The look of surprise on the father's face every time he received one of these letters in the movie was priceless. That kind of junk mail, I guess, is most welcome. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Classics 4, with Traces and Jan Arden and Could I Be Your Girl? Which brings me to this. I ran across a very interesting item about mailboxes in Marcia Bolton's Letters from the Country series, published by MacArthur and Company, and also featured in the May 07 issue of the Reader's Digest. She titles this letter, Mailbox Murders. Listen to her experience with this, and I quote, "It's a pleasant walk to my mailbox, a kind of Zen stroll, with plenty of time to pause and examine the buds on the trees for signs of spring. And on my rural route, a mailbox becomes a sort of signpost for directions. In blinding rain or snow, the old mailbox is a faithful and familiar marker. So when your mailbox is murdered, it's upsetting. It is also a sure sign of spring. A few days ago, I found my mailbox lying like a slain thing at the side of the road. Mine was not the only mailbox slaughtered in the night. Mailbox murders tend to be cluster killings. I've had half a dozen mailboxes cut down in their prime. At first, I replaced them with mailboxes with birds on them, or ones shaped like barns that cost $50. Finally, I got smart. At local auctions, I stocked up on well-worn mailboxes in need of paint. Pretty mailboxes are prime targets. The ones with a few dents and a bit of rust tend to survive longer. One retired farmer spent an entire winter crafting a Chinese pagoda-shaped mailbox out of popsicle sticks. It lasted for 2 days, and the remains were never found. It would be fairly ridiculous to ask the police to stand guard at rural mailboxes all night long. So I called to find out what we could do to protect our boxes. The sergeant in charge of mailbox decapitation told me what I already knew. It happens every spring. According to the officer, there isn't much anyone can do to protect a defenseless mailbox. You could build a stone cairn around the post and weld iron bars around the box. But all that does is present a challenge. She goes on to write, one of my neighbors tried installing a battery-operated burglar alarm. It was activated every time the mailbox was opened. This got to be a bit of a pain in the ear, especially for Len, the mailman. Some lines later, she writes, I applied a rubber mallet to the major dents in my old blue mailbox. 4-inch screws secured it to the post. Then one day I found it on its side with a mortal crease, but this time I took it personally. Inside the scarred remnants of the mailbox, someone had left a funeral parlor advertisement and an empty beer bottle. I lost 2 more mailboxes to the beer bottle basher. None of my neighbors suffered similar attacks. I began to spend more and more time checking the box throughout the day and inspecting the roadway for walkers, bicyclists, and slow-moving vehicles. Paranoia? Perhaps. But just because you live in a place where it is actually possible to stop and smell the roses doesn't mean you can drop your guard. Unquote. Her solution next. And it's a good one. With Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, the box tops with, of course, the letter. One final thought from the article Mailbox Murders, an excerpt from Marcia Bolton's Letters from the Country series, published by MacArthur and Company, and featured in the May 07 issue of the Reader's Digest. She continues, and again I quote, "My neighbors Sheryl and Jim came up with a solution for me. A mailbox mounted on a wooden box that fits neatly over the mailbox post. Every day I transport this box to its post before Len the mailman comes, then pick it up when he has delivered. Now, I enjoy 2 walks to the mailbox every day, taking time to stop along the way." Unquote. Great idea. But I'll bet she still finds some bills and a few pieces of junk mail. My wife took a look through a flyer for a business supply store the other day and told me that she found a junk mail shredder. You don't even have to open your junk mail anymore to put it all in the recycling bin. Now you can shred the entire envelope and its contents, no matter how thick the junk mail. We might not be able to stop the flyers advertising everything under the sun, but it seems we've developed a way to dispose of it without even having to open the envelope. Now, if we can just figure out a solution to the junk mail in our email inbox. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. That concludes another chapter of Lovers and Other Strangers. Lovers and Other Strangers returns long after the sun sets. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.
Your life set to words and music. Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI.